Hello and welcome everyone. So in the previous class, we started with the topics of first semester of microbiology. First, we saw the definition of microbiology, the meaning of the term. We saw what microbiology deals with, what are the organisms we study about in microorganisms. Then we saw how history has evolved into what we see now, the microbiology as we see now, how history has evolved into that. Then we also saw the lens, who discovered lens, then who was the first one to see a microorganism, and who was the first one to actually recognize them and see them moving. So a living microorganism was first seen by Anton van Leeuwenhoek. So we saw this as the first stage where we saw how microbiology developed as a discipline. Now this age of microbiology, this 1860s to 1900s, during this period around 1851 to around 1900, or rather 1915. So this stage is called the golden age of microbiology. Why this place time was known as the golden age of microbiology? So to know that, we have to know the different events that took place during this time. So first of all, the event that was there was the debate between the spontaneous generation and biogenesis. The other term for spontaneous generation is also known as abiogenesis. So it's basically abiogenesis versus biogenesis. Now let's try to understand why this debate was there. First of all, obviously during the evolution, with that time they had no idea that how life can evolve. So according to them, life just evolved from some non-living matter. Like for example, just think about it, the rocks that are there, that can give rise to small grasses or small algae. So that was their theory, that only any non-living structure can give rise to living organism. But presently we know only life can evolve from another life. Even it is in the third point of cell theory, if you remember, which was given by Rudolf Virchow, it says that cells can only arise from pre-existing cell. So here we are seeing that biogenesis is life can only evolve when there is a previous life. So now this debate was there that probably this is the actual thing, that non-living things can give rise to living things. Now to prove this wrong, several scientists started to do some experiments. The first experiment was conducted by Francesco Redi. Francesco Redi, he existed during this period. So he did some experiments where he heated a piece of meat so that he kills all the microorganisms in it, and then he put this meat in two different containers. So in one container he closed it, he put a cork on top of it so that no oxygen can get in. In the other container he kept it open. Okay, so this was the first experiment that he did. Okay, now what he saw after few days, he saw that there were microorganisms growing on the one that was open, and that the one that had a cap on top of it, a cork on top of it, it did not had any microorganisms growing on it. Now people started to question that, they started to say that oxygen was not able to enter, or rather that time oxygen was not the thing, they used to call it the vital force. So vital force is not able to enter over here, so how can life be possible? According to them, if the vital force enters, then only the life can originate. So here there is no question of vital force entering. Here there was a vital force entering, so microorganisms could originate from the dead piece of meat. So that was what their logic, their theory. So Francesco Redi did one more experiment where he put a muslin cloth on top of this container, and he allowed oxygen, or rather the vital force, to enter. So now the vital force can enter, but no other organisms can enter. So here also he saw there was no microorganisms growing on it. So that's why he proved that even if oxygen is entering, microorganisms won't grow. So basically what happened, over here the maggots came but couldn't enter. over here the maggots came, the flies came rather, the flies came and they couldn't enter. Here the flies came and they laid their eggs and the maggots were formed. Here also the flies came but they couldn't enter, so they couldn't lay their eggs, so no maggots were forming. This was Francisco Redi's experiment. But later on there were scientists again arguing about it, that probably there is some other reason, vital force is lost or many other reasons that they used to give. Even after few days they actually saw microorganisms growing on this meat also. They even saw microorganisms growing on this meat also. Presently we know that if we don't heat a substance thoroughly or nicely, or there are many other things which many other organisms or many other endospores rather, that is the term, there are structures of microorganisms which make them resistant to heating. So that's why those endospores may have stayed over there, or some other microorganisms may have stayed over there, which developed into something and which started to decay the meat. So basically there was a possibility that the meat got decayed or microorganisms started to grow in this because it was already there. Okay, but still the scientists that time, they had no idea about it. According to them, this non-living thing only gave rise to the living organism. So Francisco's experiment was not very convincing for them. Next, there was a next person who was John Needham. So he tried to argue with the Francisco Redi's experiment. He took some chicken broth in a container and he heated it. He heated it and he kept it for some time. He saw that in the chicken broth, after some time, even if it was closed, even if there was a cap on top of it, there was microorganisms growing in the broth, which proved it showed life. So that proved again abiogenesis to them, that life has originated in the chicken broth. But actually we know presently it's because of the insufficient heating. So the argument still continued. Next came one more person, Lazzaro Spallanzani, during 1765. Why the dates I am giving? Because this will be helping you to understand how microbiology is actually developing step by step throughout the year. Now Lazzaro Spallanzani, what he did, he heated the same broth, same kind of chicken broth he took, and he heated that chicken broth for prolonged period of time. So he heated it for prolonged period of time, for a long time. Then he proved that after some time, even if he is closing it like the way it was closed by Needham, he proved that there was no sign of life over here. No life was there. So again he proved that there was no life because the abiogenesis is not a possibility. But people then argued that probably there is no life because the free air, or in other words the vital force, has been destroyed due to prolonged heating. So this was the next argument. So the debate still continued. Still the debate was going on. No one had any idea about the overall proof. There was no proof. Finally, there was a person to give the proof. So the person who gave the proof was Louis Pasteur. So Louis Pasteur in 1861, so you can see now the golden period has started, the golden age of microbiology. Louis Pasteur now did something called the Swan Lake flask experiment. So in the Swan Lake experiment, he bended the mouth of a flask like this, and he took some sterile broth inside this. Okay, he took some sterile broth inside it. This broth was slowly heated and then cooled. Okay, so it was heated and then cooled. So now it is cooled, obviously now the vital force is there. According to the theory that vital force is not there because of the heating, now after cooling the vital force can be there. So what he saw after long time, he saw there was no growth of microorganisms. So there was no growth of microorganisms. Okay, so again here he proved that, so we can see the microorganisms are not growing. Okay, so at least they saw, not what we saw, but they saw that no microorganisms are growing. So what was Louis Pasteur's experiment? So what he explained, so the broth remained free from microorganism or remained sterile for many years. So that's fine, many years it is sterile. So what happened actually, the explanation to this is the microorganisms were trying to enter this, but due to this bend over here, the microorganisms got trapped in this neck only, they couldn't reach till the sterile broth. So that's why the broth remained sterile for a long period of time. Here this place may had the microorganisms, but they couldn't reach over here because they got trapped over here. Moreover, what he did, he also tilted this thing. He took the, so he took the swan necked flask and he tilted it also now. So this was a tilted flask. So what he saw after a short period of time when he tilted it, that microorganisms were now growing in the broth. When he just kept it upright now, so then he saw that here the microorganisms started to grow. So what was the explanation to this? When the flask was tilted, the substance that was here, it came into this and came into contact with all those microorganisms that was here, that got trapped over here in the bends. So they actually came in contact with this material that was there, it came in contact with this when it was tilted. So when it was tilted, they have, the microorganisms came in contact with the leaden dust, plus the microorganisms is in contact with the broth. Okay, so hence that's why the microorganisms grew over here. So that's what he did, he proved it. But in some of the flasks of Louis Pasteur, there were still microorganisms growing. He saw that some of the microorganisms were growing even after they have been kept over in this way for a long period of time. So some of his swan neck flasks had this microorganisms growing. So this was a swan neck flask experiment. So hence again his theory was disapproved. Then finally the last person to clarify everything was John Tyndall. So what this John Tyndall did, it was during 1877. John Tyndall proved that there are two types of bacteria. One is the heat labile bacteria, which are sensitive to heat and they can be killed on heating since they are sensitive to heat. But the other kind of bacteria, they were heat resistant and they couldn't be killed in this way. It's probably because those bacteria have a structure around them which we call the endospore. So this is not going to be killed in the first heating. So John Tyndall said that there is a need for intermittent heating or heating one after another. Okay, so there is a thing of intermittent heating. Now, or rather twice it will be heated, or discontinuous heating. So when it was boiled again the second time, then it killed the endospore which got germinated during the time period, during the gap, and now they can be killed. So if I summarize the overall work of John Tyndall showed that when we take the first we take the chicken broth or whatever they have taken, whatever we want to take. When we heat it for the first time, we only kill the vegetative cells. Only the vegetative cells are killed. But what happened to the endospores? They survive. Endospores survive and they germinate. So in the second time, later on, we see microorganisms growing on it because of the endospores which survived and they started to germinate. So what we do is we do a third heating. So you know this triangle means the sign for heating. So when we do the third heating, we see those endospores which have germinated over here, they are going to be killed again. So here the germinated endospores in their vegetative form, endospores now is in their vegetative form, so now they can be easily killed. So this process of heating intermittently or discontinuous heating was known as Tyndallization. It came to be known as the Tyndallization, which we do now also, intermittent heating. So that's how the overall spontaneous generation versus biogenesis debate was solved when Tyndall proved that every time whenever they are heating, still microorganisms are arising. It is only because the microorganisms were not destroyed properly, or rather they survived the heat somehow. So that's all for today. Thank you.